Sandra, welcome. It's so good to have you here. You have a special, I forgot to mention that you have an amazing book that the revised edition. There you go. Tell us.
Uh, Thanks, Linda. This is so fun, you guys. I mean, the work we do is so solitary, and here we get together. Thank you for convening this group all the time, not just today. I revised my book cover to cover what first time authors need to know about editing, and I'm giving you a free ebook download. The book funnel link is in the chat, and it will ask you to download the book. And my only request is if you are inclined to leave an honest review on Amazon, I would appreciate it. I need to build up my numbers to play the game with Amazon's algorithm. So thank you very much. And I am delighted to be here. Linda sent me some really hard questions, so I'm gonna struggle through them. Go, Linda.
Okay. So, one of the first questions that we hear a lot about working with first time authors and we learn kind of like the 101 of working when we're studying and to become editor. But what I'm really curious about, or initially I was very curious about, was one of the biggest things is that we tend to do is just to overdo our job, is to go like way above and beyond what the scope was and to overfunction. Um, so what can we help or what can we do better to prevent ourselves from doing scope creep, even if the author hasn't created a scope creep for us? Does that make sense? Does that, yeah.
Oh, I think that that happens with every author, and the little secret that we all have is everybody's a first time author because if it's another book they're writing, they're always a first time with that. But I have learned over the years to price the project and not based on number of words or number of pages, but based on what I see, and I want to see the whole manuscript, not judge from a chapter. And I make sure there's wiggle room in there to cover those emails that they're gonna send us and questions they have or the hour-long conversation on the phone. So you wanna cover yourself with your project pricing. And then I tell them, once our edit is done, I will guide you through independent publishing. And then we will do an hourly consulting rate because there's no way to anticipate everything else. So if they're going to email you 10 times a day, they know the meter is running at a consulting rate per hour. And right now I charge $75 and they get a real hour of my time. And actually they probably get more. I'm not always logging every hour. So yeah, it's your time and that's all you have to sell and your expertise.
And it's going to happen all the time because this reminded me that yesterday on a Slack space, I got referred. Somebody said, "Oh, you should, contact Linda Ruggeri. She can help you with that nonfiction dev edit." And so I sent a message to the person. They emailed me, and I said, "Here's here's my intake form because I need to know a little bit more about your project." And the response immediately, and really, this is somebody who works in publishing. Their response was, "It's a 30,000 word nonfiction manuscript. What do you charge for a dev edit?" And I was like, Wait a minute." I'm
Gotta
not
see
gonna
it.
like throw out a blind number. Like I need to look at what I want to see the table of contents. I want to see, are there images on, so there's that spidey sense that initially the gut reaction said, "Oh, I would charge this." And then it's like, no. Like, let's wait a minute.
No, and
Let's
you
get
don't wanna be surprised with 175, entries in citations that take forever. Okay.
exactly.
So
Exactly. And a lot of times I think writers don't realize that. So I don't think it's done intentionally. Nobody's there trying to go and screw you and like get the most, out of that edit. It's just that they don't know that they're supposed to reveal some of these things.
they
That,
they don't know. Would you let me drop in here my top challenges for working with first-time authors?
absolutely. Let's do
Okay.
it. Yeah.
I think we can all identify with this. The author who says, "I just need a proofread." Don't you love those people? I just want a proofread. Well, they don't understand the levels of edit. They don't understand what that all means. They don't know what their manuscript needs. So we have to look at it. Like you said, we're not going to base it, just on a number of words. So I kind of school them. I want an initial phone call. I want a speed date with that author because I want to get a sense of them. I may not want to work with them. I might say, I'm not the right editor for you. Then I come to you guys and find someone because I know my limits. You have to know your limits. So you have to school them on that, and you have to price the project as a project. Um, some of them have a fear of sending their manuscript to you. They think you're going to rip it off or publish. I go, okay, look, I'd be happy to sign a non-disclosure and whatever you want me to sign. I said, but you're covered by copyright, and your biggest fear is being pirated on Amazon. That's where your risk is. Not with me. I'm not, but I'll sign whatever they want me to sign. But then there's the author who says, I'm writing a leadership book. And that's one of the areas that I edit. So then I see the manuscript and it's a memoir. So here is my rear admiral. I love him. He's wonderful. He flew F-14s off he was the commander of the Nimitz, a nuclear carrier. And I said, Mike, this is a memoir. This is you standing in the officers club telling stories. Oh, they're great stories. It's still a memoir. So he wanted a leadership book for his brand. So I hooked him up with a CEO coach who helped him discover the lessons in the stories. So sometimes we have to act like a broker to help them refine their book. Then there's the author who says, everyone's my target reader. Now, that's one of the questions I ask when
Oh,
I'm
that
having
one, that is like what will
yeah,
drive me up the wall. Who's the book for? Everyone.
everyone's going to love my book. I go, there is no book that everyone needs to read. So I explain them Marketing 101. We have to understand who your book is for right now, because that will help us guide all the decisions we make about everything about your book. And it's kind of a revelation to people. It really is. But they've never thought about marketing. They've never thought about who they're going to and how they're going to sell their book, because they think once they write it, put it on Amazon, the world will find them and they will, oh my goodness. Well, anyway, um, that's not true. So we have to do some marketing schooling with them. And I have often said that we editors, and I think all of us know, we have to consider the marketing when we're helping them title the book, when we're helping them pick the right genre for the book. So um, we are doing tons of hand holding
Yeah.
for every author. I'm not afraid to fire an author too, because if we get down the road and it's just not working, I say, you know what, I think this isn't working. I think we need to move on. And you make sure you got a kill fee, you've settled up, and they're happy, you're happy, but it just wasn't going to work. Then there's the author who says, I just want to write the book. I don't want to think about the marketing. That's where you have to do what I said. You have to school them on search engine optimization in their titling. But then they go, but I love my title. Don't change my title. And I said, okay, well, here's this. I work with a lot of law enforcement. You're going to see that. This is a narcotics sergeant. He came to me with a manuscript titled My Blue Life. And I go, okay, Mark,
Are you a whale?
where are the where are the key words in that? And Amazon's not going to find you. So I work with them and come busting bad guys. And he actually wrote another one, more busting bad guys. And he's in love with this title. But he came to me with that one, and that was in his head. And I said, you know what? Maybe we can make your favorite title a chapter title. And a lot of times they'll go along with that, knowing that their little pet phrase is in their book. I had another cop came to me with a book called Flip of a Coin. And he was a SWAT guy. I go, that means nothing.
Yeah.
Go to a library and tell the librarian the title of your book and say, what's my book about? This is what I tell them to do. Anyway, he was the battering ram guy, the one, first one in the door,
Yeah.
Ram One. That was his thing in SWAT. That was his title. His book is called Ram One. He loves it now. Our job is to guide them, but if they insist, then it's their book. It's their book, and I say to them, you will make all the decisions. You're the final, but I will give you my best advice.
Sandra, I'm going to hop in quickly there because I
Yeah.
want to. This is something what Sandra's mentioning about, and I've talked about it a lot too with this group, is that we shouldn't limit our work to just what's happening on the page. We really need to, not that we have to do any kind of work within publishing, but you need to know what's happening in publishing, how decisions get made, and how books get sold, and how they make money. And so if there's an interest in figuring out, how do we help authors choose a better title, we can have another session with Sandra maybe in a few months to talk about that because I think that's an interesting thing. Just being able to provide that level of guidance that's based on real world data and information and how people purchase books. I think that's really, really important. And going back to what you were saying, Sandra, about people that don't want to do marketing, I come across that and then I realize when I tell the author how many books they're going to have to sell to make up for all the
Mm.
money they've invested in um, getting the book out there, then, and how much money they have to recuperate before they start, making any money, then all of a sudden people are interested in understanding that they need to market their book and how they're going to have to sell it. And then there's a vested that when it hits the pocket, then that's when people realize that they have to become interested. So those are really excellent points that you're making of things that are outside of our scope, but that we need to know about so that we can really do the best service we can for these authors.
Here's another one. A woman came to me, I'm gonna cover up the name, with this book contract. I went, I'm reading it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, okay? She's gonna pay them $15,000. They are gonna print 1,000 copies of her hardcover children's book. They're gonna take a royalty every time the book is sold. I went, "Do not sign this. Here's why." She has no idea what goes on in the world and how publishers take money. What I ended up explaining to her was the difference between a hybrid publisher like this, where you pay them and they're in your pocket all the time, and a publishing services company that you own everything. You pay them for their services. And now she feels quite enlightened, but she felt these people were ready to take her to
And
the cleaners
it
all
happens
the
all the time.
all the
All the
time.
like the
Yeah.
amount of authors I've worked with that come to me with like they come to hire me because they're not happy with the work that was done at a packager
Mhm.
and they can't get out of the contract. The ISBN doesn't belong to them. So in the end, the packager owns that. And all of a sudden, this book that they've been working on for 2 or 3 years is stuck with another company and that they can't change anything about. They can't republish it. They can't. So yeah, understanding
It's
the differences is really important.
it's tragic, and they get scammed. These are scammed. That's why I talk to people about writer beware and to check there and do some searching online for these people and understand. Spend $1,000 with an intellectual property attorney to understand the contract, although I'm not sure they always understand the whole publishing world either. Um, there's the author who says to us, "I wanna read my own audiobook," as Linda and I were talking about earlier. I tell them, "If you're gonna staple egg crates in a closet and get in there with your iPhone, do not do that." I said, "There are so many restrictions on the quality control through ACX. Hire a voice. The audition process there is ton of fun, but just be careful. There are AI voices." I had a friend who the voice sounded great. And then she paid them. ACX said, "Nope, this is AI." So even ACX won't protect you. Um, there's the author who says, "I'm writing a memoir," and then you get the manuscript, and it starts with "I was born." I go, "No, okay, okay. The only person who wants to read the I was born memoir is your family." So I said, Let's find the defining moment in your life." And, this Busting Bad Guys book, his started with, "I entered the police academy." Well, at the end of his career, he shot and killed a drug dealer. I went, "Mark, we're gonna open with that story." And then we dipped back and circled back and got the early stuff in his life and how he became who he was. But it's fun to work with people and help them see their life in a different way, in a way that makes it interesting to other people, and that's always fun. But, I'm working with another person now who, he was a very high executive in the US government. He was fired by Trump when Trump came into office the second time. That's his defining moment. That's what we're starting his memoir with. And to him, that was like, "Well, yeah, that was his how." So, sometimes it takes you being objective and standing back to give them advice about their book. I have one more, and this is the author who says, "I didn't use AI." Yes, authors lie, They did. They go, "Well, okay, I use Claude for some ideas, and, ChatGPT helped me outline my book." Well, they s I have turned down 5 manuscripts so far in my career, in the past year, and 2 of them were for a New York publisher. I said, "This was written by AI, it very heavily AI. I think you're gonna have issues with it, getting" Copyright office has some restrictions, and that's kind of a moving target. So, I took Erin Survey's course, and I know, Linda, you adore her too, and AI for editing, and I wanted to understand it, and I wanted and she really helped me see AI for what it can do to help and where it should not be used. So that's another discussion we have with authors who there are a lot of people out there now writing books using AI heavily. And we're smart people. We can read this stuff. When you're tinkering with somebody at the word level, sentence level, they didn't write it. You know that they didn't. So there's a couple programs Pangram.com is a pretty good AI checker right now. And when I heard about this through Aaron, I believe, verifymywriting.com, it's a place where you can put your book in, and it's not a it won't learn my book, okay, because you don't want to put your book into any AI, but it will verify. And I on my copyright page, I have this little badge that says 100% human written. So, and because I know this is 100% human written, I had comfort level in the quality of their review of that. Now, Authors Guild will also certify your book as human written, but they take you at your word. It's a You say you did it, and they go, okay, fine. Um, that one's coming under some scrutiny right now. So, um, those are the big things, that kinda came to mind about working with first-time authors because, they don't know a lot of things, and they rely on us, and I wanna give them what they need.
Yeah. I want to clarify for those that might be new to editing that we have several guests I mentioned today in the group that are visiting us at the networking studio. If you're just starting off and maybe you're not offering developmental editing or copy editing and you're only doing proofreading, a lot of these things might not apply. However, you will come across when proofreading also manuscripts thinking that this should have been copy edited or who you might have opinions about the manuscript. But if you're proofreading and specifically that is the scope of the work, it's a proofread, I would be very careful with what kind of feedback you offer the client because not all feedback is appropriate during a proofread unless something is, really a huge red flag that you need to bring up. But for the rest of you who are doing copy editing and developmental editing or author coaching on these things that Sandra is mentioning are things that unfortunately come up more often than we want to. So yeah, absolutely. Um, Sandra, so when I guess, are there things that editors or that you remember doing in your career with first time authors that backfired or didn't go the way you thought they might go? Um, and then
Oh,
yeah, and then what was that learning experience like, or what do you do differently now?
the fact that they didn't understand the whole process. And early on in my career, I was, like, gonna edit, and then I was done, and it's like, "Thank you," and then they moved on. But I realized I had to understand the whole process. I had to understand KDP, I had to understand how to upload. I had to understand how to prepare that Word document for designers. In fact, I'm writing a blog post now with Paul Nylander about how, um, these documents that we give designers make the designers crazy, and things we can do in the manuscript to make that process from Word document through InDesign and into a book template for your PDF pages easier, more efficient. And I interviewed a number of designers and said, "What are your biggest pet peeves?" And let me see if I can remember a few of them. Oh, leaving in tracking or marginal comments, or leaving notes to the designer within the manuscript that they can't pull out and understand what they are or what they mean or what they're supposed to do. We had tons of these things. So it's important for us to understand the entire scope of the editorial process, all into production, into publishing, and really into marketing. Um, we
Yeah.
need to understand it all.
And unfortunately, that kind of stuff, and this just happened to me when I was at AWP at the Association of Writers and Writing Programs, which is basically where all the MFA schools are at. And there's not that much knowledge of the publishing world and what's happening. So there just now some MFA programs are starting to include a class about 101, publishing 101 because they realize that they're preparing these authors and these writers to go out into the world without the knowledge of what the publishing side looks like and how business savvy, where you need to be business savvy, probably. So that's definitely something, that writers are becoming more knowledgeable. They should be. It's a business. If you want to, publish a book, that book is your new business. But as editors too, we need to know what they're in for and what that's going to be like for them. I also posted a link in the chat very quickly about Paul Nylander's
Yeah.
presentation here a few weeks ago, if anybody wants to see it. If you don't can have access to the link, let me know later in a message, and I'll put the direct YouTube link, which I don't have on me right now. Um,
That's how I linked up with him. I saw him
oh,
with you. Yeah. I'm taking a class at the University of Nebraska in the English department. When you're of a certain age, you can take any class free, and if the instructor will let you in. And it is so fun to be in a classroom of 20 Gen Zers. I mean, it's like craziness. But the nonfiction program at the University of Nebraska here in Omaha does have a nonfiction track, and one of the courses is publishing.
that's so good to know.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
excellent. Yeah, we definitely need more of that. Another really great resource, and we might invite her to speak here, is Catherine Pickett. She has a book called Perfect Bound. Every first time author that I work with that's thinking about publishing, whether it be traditional or with hybrid or self publishing, I will recommend that book for because it really gives them not only the knowledge about the different publishing options that they have, but it really empowers them so that they make the decision on their own without having to rely on you or word of mouth or other people. It really gives them a basis. And it's a book that I refer to time and time again. So it's a really, I'll put the link in the chat too in a little bit. Um,
Good to know.
Sandra, so when working with a first time author, I'm looking at my list of
Yeah.
questions here. Um, how do you decide what to fix for them as opposed to teach them things that they should see on their own? Because we've talked about a lot about that, I think, here in this group, that sometimes, and I tend to do this, my patient gets the best of me and I'll just fix things that nobody's asked me to fix just because I know, extra spaces, comma, like punctuation. So how much do you tell authors what they need to do and let them do it on their own, or how much do you feel that you need to intervene and do things? And this kind of goes with scope creep too. So
No, Linda, that's a good question. I see Jody Unsinger is here. Hey, Jody. Hi. She's an editor I've worked with. And she knows that I mentor young, new, eager editors, and they tend not to fix. They will query and say, "Is it okay if we do that?" And I say to them, "Fix it. Fix it. That's what you're being paid for. Fix it." Now, in my book, at the end of the book, there's a checklist for first-time authors to give their manuscript a final check, and one of the things is my pet peeve words like good, great, things, pretty, very okay. So I said, take a run through with those words and clean it up. And there's always a better word for things, and everything is not great.
thank
Well,
yeah.
so I fix those. But I also first time I do it, if the author's overused a word with like great, they all do. Um, I leave a marginal note and tell them why I'm fixing those. The I just had a manuscript. Oh, I have most interesting guy. He was with Homeland Security, special agent. He was worked southern border. He's very interesting. All of his people that he worked with were guys. The guys did this, the guys did that. I mean, we had like 200 guys. Okay. So I said, "All right, Eric, go back through. Their fellow border patrol agents, their teammates, their officers, their leaders, their special agents, he did. And he goes, wow. See, so I gave him a little homework after the first major edit. And that gives him a sense of pride and satisfaction in polishing his manuscript. So I generally, unless it's something really big, then I'll query, or I even might contact the author during the edit and say, I'm going to move chapter 6 over here and move these. Are you good with that? Usually they say yes.
Yeah, that's yeah, I love it. Yeah. Moving chapters, I think, especially
That's
with
a
the
biggie.
style of them, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a but I and then it feels so good. That's one of the things that I do, too, is in my developmental editing notes, even though it's not part of the dev edit, but if I notice a pattern of repetitive words, like you said, the very, the good, the great, it's so easy to do a word find, like a great, and Word will show you how many instances, if you have the navigation pane open, you can see how many instances of the word great has been used in the manuscript. And so I just like to add a sentence like your used words are great 468 times, very 220. And you can make a list of like 4 or 5 words that they're overusing and show them how many instances. You don't have to show them where they are because they can do the find and look for those themselves. But just show them how many instances, because then that creates. They understand that there might be a pattern there, and so the next time they go to write a sentence, if it has great or very or good, they're going to be a lot more cautious, or they're going to make the effort at least to choose a different word instead. So yeah, that's a great idea.
It does help them be a better writer from that point on when you point those out. Yeah.
Yeah, and Grammarly, I'm not a Grammarly fan, but Grammarly does that really, really well, for people that are not natural born writers. It will point out to them things that they tend to do and patterns, of writing that they have. So the problem is, I think Grammarly doesn't tell them that that's not always wrong. Well, because you have a pattern of language, this is how you speak, and that doesn't mean that it's wrong. It means that you might just want to shift or correct a couple of those.
No, I
Okay.
agree.
So, my next question is, which parts of working with first-time authors have you intentionally systematized? Meaning, to reduce fatigue of repetitive task doing. So, I do a lot of text expanders and macros, but have you implemented in your editing flow process anything that you do that's a repetitive task so that you're not, getting burned down by those corrections?
I was puzzled by that question, and I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Perfectly fine. That's
I
good.
I
Yeah.
don't have an answer. Uh, you know, uh, the thing that came to mind was an index. So sometimes, not often, will a nonfiction book need an index. And so I don't let anyone use AI to create their index, but I like them to come up with their keywords and then create. And I like to get them involved in doing their own index because who more intuitively knows their book than the author? And so instead of paying an indexer, um, or using an AI index, which is terrible, the author, again, part of them taking ownership of their own book. But when you used the word systematize, that's kinda came to mind, but that's
For
not
me, it's
what
like,
you were
yeah, so I use
asking me.
text
Yeah.
expander a lot, and I'll like create these snippets, especially, and it's usually like on a project for project basis. If I'm working on a project, for example, I don't know, a review of a Spanish translation, and I'm noticing a correction that I'm making over and over, then I'll just, and after I make it 3 times and it's in the first maybe chapter or two, then I'll go and I'll create a snippet in a text expander. So then I can, it'll automatically open a comment box in Word, and it'll paste that correction or that comment, as needed in there. But that, or I use Perfected also when I usually will run
Love yeah,
Perfected before I start
yeah.
doing any kind of work on a manuscript, just to clean out the little things that I don't have to track, all the time.
I will run Perfected early on, and then I will run it at the end. Um, I'm told that Perfected is not AI. So if someone says, "Did you use AI in the editing?" You
Yeah,
can
no,
truthfully say no.
yeah.
I like it because it will find those missing quotation marks at the end of something, the close quotes and stuff, and little things or some words that are spelled differently. Um, but I like that one very much. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Yeah, and can I tell you my biggest perfected nightmare story that I had?
Uh-oh. Oh, yes.
Oh my god. I was working for a publisher, this was about 4 years ago, one of my favorite publishers that I still work with, thank goodness. There, I haven't been fired, but I ran perfected on this manuscript where the author tended to leave a space or two spaces. I can't remember. It was a space before or after a period. And I was running perfected, cleaning up the manuscript at the beginning because I usually clean them up. So there's a lot. When I'm editing, I will run perfect to clean it up. And what I mean by that is that I try to fix it with all the basic corrections without track changes that it doesn't really matter. The author doesn't have to see every single comma or space that I deleted or, soft return versus hard. Um, and I was making the correction. So I was fixing everything like then here's my last question before we start sharing other things or opening up to everyone else to ask you questions. But one of the things that sets apart efficient and established editors from editors that are just starting out because they don't know yet how to is the creation of templates or standard documents or checklists that we use when we're working on a project. So do you have any templates that have made a difference for you or that to this day that you use when working with first time authors that you like swear by and will not, do a project without them?
No, I don't. I Every manuscript is so different. I have my routine, like we all are, because we're all OCD people. Let's just admit it, we are. But that is a virtue if you're an editor. But no, I don't.
Not even like an editorial letter template or I don't know, a copy editing checklist or a client,
I do have an email that I use to convey a manuscript back after a major edit, and I tell them, look at the tracking, save the tracking, keep tracking on, that kind of thing. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So those instructions, you do have those things
yeah,
so that you don't have to
yeah.
repeat that over and over. Okay.
Now, a lot of authors will say, uh, give me a step by step, how, what, and then what? And then, and I go, wait, first of all, if we did that, they would be overloaded. It would not sink in. They wouldn't understand all these steps. I said, look, I'm going to take you step by step and I'll give you a few of the next steps, but we have to do them in order. Don't be talking with a cover designer till we've nailed the title, that kind of thing. But if anybody has a template for all those steps, I'd love to see one. I just have never found one that works or that I could manipulate
I
to me.
have one that I use as a checklist for my deadline and my just because I know what my weak spots are. That if I don't flag those, I'm just going to, breeze right over them and miss them. So, but okay, so I have a couple of templates that I use with my work. But one of the templates that I think that's paid off in the last 2 years, and I call it's a template, but it's basically a small Excel spreadsheet when I'm working with authors that I'm helping them all the way from the development of the manuscript to publishing, it'll just have the stages like stage one, developmental editing, and it'll list underneath what's going to get done at that stage and who's doing
Oh,
the work.
okay.
And then it'll be like
Oh,
copy editing, and it'll have also the contact information of who the copy editor is, in case they, what they will be doing and how long that process. So they can see kind of a timeline of where they're at and where they need to be every month. And that's been really, really helpful. And it's just a table basically. But I feel that for some writers that are more visual thinkers, it really allows them to see the scope of the whole project and
sure.
how long. So, but okay, so I'm sure that there's a lot of questions. This has been really informative, and I'm going to open it up. You can raise your hand. You can speak up. This is a very casual conversation with everyone. So, does anyone want to start? Jody, go ahead.
Hey, ladies. Sandy, I just wanted to tell you how much I enjoyed your book. Um, Very insightful. It's written by someone who is a very seasoned veteran, very
I earned
knowledgeable.
these gray hairs. I earned them.
And I
Thank
learned
you.
a few things myself. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jody.
Can't
You
wait.
brought me to this group, and I appreciate that very much.
Oh, me too. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
Next question.
You
Sure.
talked about having boilerplate. I I have a library of articles that I have copied, like the links. A lot of them go to Kindlepreneur. Um, because if, let's say, an author says, "Yes, I'm going to upload all my files to KDP myself," and I go, "Okay, here's an article that takes you step by step on how to do that." So I try to give them a little help so they don't come back to me with a terrible mess. And usually they can do that. Yeah,
All right.
usually they can do that. So if you save a lot of articles, and you can send those links to people, they find them helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the no, the other thing I wanted to ask you is I just put a link to your website here. It seems like a lot of these first time authors find you. How does your work? What's your work funnel like? How do people come to you? How do they find you usually?
That's a good question. Early on in my career, someone told me never let any client be more than 25% of your business because, if they go away, you lose them. You don't want to lose a huge client. So I have a number of funnels. I'm on Readsy and I get a lot of requests. I don't I don't close a lot of them because I don't want to work with a lot of those. I'm real picky, and I'd love to hear other people's experiences with Readsy. I'm having a little thing with them right now, which I'd rather not put on a public forum. Okay.
I got invited to be on Readsy about 3 years ago, and I went through this whole vetting process. And they're like, "Oh, we have too many editors like you already, so we can't." And I was like, "You just had me go through this whole thing."
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
That's
yeah, and I've hired some people from Reezy to do back end things for my business, like maybe manage my Amazon ad or review certain things. But I've heard positive and negative things, and I think one of the beautiful things that you could choose your rate and you could choose who
mhm,
you want to work with.
mhm.
So, but it does allow. How many would you say? What percentage of Reezy clients of the ones that contacted you end up taking on usually?
Oh, 10%.
Perfect.
1 in 10 or 1 in 20. Not too many. I've gotten really picky. A lot of them are too early. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're looking for, or they'll say, "My budget's $500." Those are the fun ones. Um, yeah. So Reedsy's one. I have colleagues that I work with I have designers who send me their authors who come to them with unedited manuscripts. And I said to these authors, "Make that designer your best friend because they just saved you from publishing a book that's filled with error." So I have that. I also am my website's pretty optimized on Google. I Woman called me the other day. She said, "Claude said you're the best editor in Omaha." I'm like, "Well, I'll have to send Claude a thank you note." So there are ways to be found on AI. Um, a lot of times people come to me and they're not writing the types of books I edit. So that's why I like to have Jody in my back pocket or other people here on and having, I'll put stuff up on your website so I
Yeah.
can find editors for my people.
And I want to go back to something that Sandra said about what people contact her through Reezy. They're just not ready. They don't know what they want to do. That's that can be very typical with a lot of first time authors. And if you reject a project like that, it's not that you're not trying to support the author, is that authors or writers, because they're not authors yet, but writers who don't understand the publishing process and they don't understand their manuscript yet can become really problematic projects in the long run because there is this scope creep because they don't know what they don't know. And you end up having to do a lot more work for those projects than you had anticipated. And those writers are not prepared sometimes to make those kind of changes or to pay those kind of fees. So it's not that you're rejecting them outright. You're probably rejecting them, or you can reject them with knowledge and information and links like, hey, this is why I can't take on your project right now. You should really read this book. You should do this. You should look at this. You just need to empower them because you're not doing them a service by taking on a project that's not ready. And you're creating you're taking a space on your calendar that you could be doing two other projects that probably pay more than that one project that you were trying to.
And projects I'd rather not coach them through, which is why I try to send those people to a book coach. Um, I s- I'd sometimes coach people, but I said, if you're just looking for somebody to contact you every week and say, hey, how's it going? That's not me. Okay. So I try to find a match with a few coaches. And if you're a book coach, let me know because I'll send you people. Um, the other way I find authors is referrals from authors I've worked with. When you're in the business a long time, you have happy authors and they send their friends to you, the ones who said, oh, I always wanted to write a book too. Um, and sometimes those work out well and sometimes they don't.
Who did you have a question?
No, when she said, "If you're a book coach, let me know," I was just saying I'm a book coach, but I have an issue with Readsy too, and I don't know if any of the others of you have had this, but they won't take you unless you've had a book that's had what 100 reviews on Amazon, I think, or you've edited for one of the big five traditional publishers,
I
and
feel like the rules are always changing. Yeah, but they do have very specific things, which is
yeah.
fine. But
Yeah, but then what Sandra's saying about, the people who come to Readsy and look are like they have no idea what they need or want yet. Like,
Yeah.
it just seems
it
like Readsy should open up their eyes a little more. But
is
anyway.
your vetting process. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Alan, I think you had a question. Oh wait, you're muted. There you
There
go.
we go. Hi. Hi, Sandra. Thanks for being here. Great talk. I'm wondering if you have any wisdom to share about so dealing with this is, I think, very particular to first-time authors. You've given your advice and they are not inclined to want to take a lot of it. Maybe it's more in a coaching thing, so you've got some ongoing work with that person. Um, I've got somebody like that, so I'm just curious.
I had an author fire me. Well, he didn't fire me. I got an email that said I had already done a major edit for him and actually a beta read process. He said I'm moving on to another editor. Well, he didn't like what I was saying. Like, gee, you shouldn't be using AI to write your book. And I am fine with that. I'm fine. We left cordially. I wished him well, and that's all you can do. I have other people who insist on this title and like when you're indie publishing, they're the boss. They're the boss of their book. I have one right now that she will not change her title. I have shown her all the publisher rocket SEO for her title and why there isn't one keyword in it. I said, go to Barnes and Noble. I can't believe I said that word. And tell a veteran bookseller there the title of your book and ask them what it's about. Then they will learn more. It won't be me telling them. So sometimes people are just too stubborn, but it's their book. It's their book. So good luck.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
That reminds me, Sandra, I have an author who I just love to death, who I've been working with for the last 3 years. He is writing a cookbook for single dads, divorced dads, and
Oh,
it's a phenomenal project. And when we started working, the title of his book was Plan B, because the marriage didn't work, and I was like, Scott, you like this is not going to work, Plan B. And he's like, oh, but we thought about it. We're like, every time I see Plan B, the only thing I can think is contraceptive. It's like, like no, like I don't think that's the direction you want to go. But yeah, you need to be able to, at the end of the day, it's up to him. But when you kind of like, I think when you can back up some stuff with data and numbers, that lets them make their own decisions. Some people are just really strong-willed and want to be the one who make their own decisions, which is fine. But you can also always share information and data to help.
or show them competing books or similar books with the same title and why people will never find their book because 12 other books have the same title.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
remember also with my book, Networking for Freelance Editors, that we had something in mind, and Melinda Martin, who was our graphic designer who did everything for the book, who specializes in book buying behavior. Like she totally gets it. She was like, "This is what you guys like. This is what the market's dictating. This is what I think you should do." And it was like, "Oh, okay." Like what we liked really wasn't the right thing for the market. So it is important to see those as business decisions. Um,
Thomas Umstattd, I don't know if you guys follow him. He's terrific. Novel Marketing is his company. Has great podcasts, and he just did one on book covers and why book covers some don't work, and why your friends will lie, and why you should about it, and why you shouldn't put it on Facebook and ask your friends which cover do you like, this one or this one. Yeah, it's art and science, and a designer. I refer people to people I trust, like designers and formatters and ebook coders and other editors. And I do not take a commission. I don't expect a kickback, and I don't. That's just not the way I do business because I will recommend someone I think is wonderful. Now, where was I going with this? Designers often ask the authors, "What do you like?" And the people I work with now, I say, that's not the right question. The question is, what works best for your book? And let's look at competing books, and let's look at the genre. Let's look at the Amazon page of bestsellers. And you will see that all these health books are bright colors, and they used to be white, but now they're bright colors. The true crime books are red and black and white. Okay. It's not what you like, it's what works. And that sometimes makes sense to people.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
But they don't always listen. We all know that. We have horror. We should just have a whole meeting of horror stories.
Oh, I have some of my own. Yeah. Other questions?
We could write a book about our horror stories.
I love that idea. But here's the best validation. Look, one of my authors sent me this.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Isn't that great?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, this is what we want.
Yeah.
We want them to be happy with their book, whether it sells 12 copies or 12,000 or 120,000. That's our goal.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sandra? Yes, Ricardo. Oh no, you're clapping, Ricardo. Okay.
Thank you.
Wait, you're muted. Hold on. You're muted, Ricardo. Wait. I'm going to ask you to unmute. There we go.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I have a very easy question for Sandra, and thank you very much for this past hour. I've really enjoyed it. This is my first time. I'm an
Yeah.
academic editor. I work with early career scholars who are their first or second year as a professor at some university. I'm an academic in my past life. I do a lot of emailing in terms of giving them help because I'm also a writing coach. I coach them through their first article in a journal, sometimes the first book, and I'm pretty lenient so far. I mean, I don't charge them, like for a 20-minute email I send to them, but I'm feeling like I'm giving them my time. Sometimes it takes me actually an hour to write a 20-minute email. So I've always wanted to ask somebody, for that advice. What do you do? Uh, even before I do the email, I'm thinking a lot in terms of what advice to give them. So do I charge for for the 20 minutes that I'm on that I'm writing the email? Do I charge them for the hour that I thought about, what to say to them?
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, I would really, every time I'm consulted an attorney or my therapist, it'll be like, oh, that's gonna save, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna save all my questions for the next session. No, we don't do, we're not attorneys and we're not therapists, not officially. But for me, I feel that's part of the scope when I'm trying to read the client before I take them on. I will try to see what kind of time investment is required of myself. I dictate a lot of emails nowadays, so that's a lot easier. I'll dictate them in, if it's going to be something that I know it's long, in Word, and then I'll just clean that up. And then I try to remind myself, do I need to send them an email? Do they really need this information? And then how much time, what is a reasonable amount of time to spend on this email? So, because if not, I'm a talker and I'm a writer and I would just be emailing people all day and not get any work done. So I really have to, it's more of me having to check it with myself. What's my allotted time for this? What do I need to say? Can I say it in the least amount, of time possible, or in the shortest email possible? And I prefer to hop on a 15-minute phone call sometimes instead of having to write everything out. So that's sometimes a better use of my time. So for me, I would try to determine that. What's the best use of my time? What am I really trying to say? Can I say it in a phone call? Um, or
I agree. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Tell them, look, I'm happy to advise you. I charge $75 an hour. And when it all adds up to a couple, 3 hours, then I'll bill you.
yeah. And most of the time, people that want that kind of curated feedback or live feedback, or they don't have a problem paying as long as they know ahead of time. They just need
Yeah.
to know, what that might
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going up on the hour. Before everyone goes, Sandra, I want to say thank you for having you here. We will be putting a lot of the links and the recording in Circle, and
Thank you.
I'll be sharing that
Thank you.
soon again. I definitely would love to see a second talk about book titles, chapter titles, maybe in the next few months. I
I'm
want to
good.
remind everyone that Scott Norton from Developmental Editing is coming next month to talk to us. Figure it out. But thank you everyone for making time to be here today. Sandra, it's so good seeing you.
Thank you.
Great
Thank you.
information,
Thank you,
feedback.
guys. Appreciate it.
Figure it out. But